Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, I'm just from the hospital and baby Rosa is now recuperating, and I believe God is going to give her full recovery. To those who stood with us in their prayers and committed us to God, I want to say thank you very much and may God bless you. Why is the Chief Justice, Madam Koome, intimidating and threatening Omutata? Omutata was only but exercising his democratic rights as entrenched in the Constitution and standing with the Kenyans who have been left alone. No one is now standing with Kenyans. The hustlers have been left alone. All the promises that were given during the campaigns have gone down the drain. Every independent institutions have been compromised. In fact, we are witnessing the height of state capture, let alone the one that the Deputy President used to talk about. The one that we are witnessing today is the worst that we have ever seen in the history of Kenya. When the Supreme Court was giving its verdict on the Finance Bill 2023, when Omutata had gone to the Supreme Court seeking interpretation of the appellate court that had set aside another ruling that was given by the High Court that had almost thwarted Ruto's Finance Bill 2023. They read a statement that has not gone well with Kenyans, especially angry and hungry Kenyans, who feel that the courts that are being maintained by taxpayers' money are now turning out to be a bully court. Listen to what the Supreme Court or Madam Koome said, that before issuing orders, our attention has been drawn to a video clip circulating in the public domain showing Omutata Okoiti, the first applicant in the instant motion, naming judges of this court in a derogatory manner, even as this matter was pending before us. We must remind parties that the dignity and authority of this court, indeed any other court of law, should not be taken for granted. We would like to state without any equivocation that we shall not hesitate to cite and punish any party or person whose conduct interferes or attempts to interfere with the course of justice in relation to any matter pending determination before the court, or whose conduct deliberately undermines the court's authority or dignity. We find the message delivered in that video clip contemptuous and debasing on the dignity of the court. That last statement continues to mention the word dignity and authority. Let me tell you, dignity is earned. It does not come automatically, just like trust is earned. And so, Madam Koome should and must understand that while the Constitution had given the Supreme Court and the judiciary authority, autonomy, and dignity, they have abandoned that dignity by getting into bed with the executive arm of the government, thereby relinquishing their authority, because they are now dancing to the very harmonious tune of the executive. Omutata is a Kenyan, and when a case is going on in court, in an environment where Kenyans do not even trust the process, then what else? People are allowed to comment on it. One person who weighed on this debate is Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi Grand Mullah, who said, "This is very alarming. Why is the Supreme Court obsessed with muzzling, intimidating, and overtly threatening those who criticize, comment, or even abuse its process and judges? Freedom of speech includes vulgar abuse of the court and even judges of the court." That is Ahmed Nasir. And he feels that the court must not be obsessed by those who criticize, those who talk ill about it. Because whenever there is a verdict, there are those who obviously are not pleased, and others will go home happy. Those who are not pleased obviously will criticize the judgment. But this court seems to be overwhelmed, and they don't want people to talk. They are trying to muzzle people. Another person who weighed on this debate said something that is very, very interesting. Nairobi Senator, who is also the Secretary General of the ODM party, said that maybe our Supreme Court has not seen the Mambo Matatu video where Ruto basically purported to allocate judicial powers to himself. Before admonishing Omutata, kindly demonstrate your seriousness by citing Ruto, because you will struggle to find words. You will struggle to find worse conduct that undermines the court's authority and dignity. Sifuna is a lawyer, and he feels that when William Ruto said mambo matatu, waende binguni ni wapeleke jela ama wahame Kenya, that part ni wapeleke jela is what many lawyers, including Sifuna, have a bone to chew with William Ruto, because they are saying William Samoei Ruto does not have the powers to take people to jail. That is why we have independent institutions that are supposed to handle cases. If at all, for example, Rai was meant to go to jail, it must be a process. Going to court, because one is always innocent until proved guilty. Enough evidence beyond reasonable doubt. And then the judges will determine whether someone is fined, someone is freed, or someone is going to jail. And so, Sifuna is telling the court that before you start admonishing and advising Koichi Omutata, then you must take the bull by its horns, tell William Ruto, call him to order, and tell him not to allocate judicial powers to himself, because by saying that he will take someone to jail, this is a routine that will soon plunge it into some critical quagmire. But why is the Supreme Court behaving this way, ladies and gentlemen? Because obviously, Madam Martha Koome and the entire Supreme Court bench are not ready to be criticized. They are turning out to be dictatorial institutions, and our Chief Justice is becoming a rogue Chief Justice. This is not the first time, and I wonder why anytime there is a ruling, a serious ruling from the Supreme Court, there must be issues. For example, in the first ruling in the presidential case, you remember hot air and wild goose chase? And now they are threatening Omutata. What is really wrong with our Supreme Court bench? These people are being maintained by taxpayers' money. They are supposed to dispense justice. They are the people who we run to when things are bad. And there are several cases that will prove to you that Kenyans have always run to the courts. During the GMO, Kenyans ran to court. During the 52 CSS that William Ruto had appointed outside law, people ran to our courts. And so our courts play a very significant role in the growth of democracy. When we see them trying to intimidate people and dance to the harmonious tune of the executive, we are worried. They are haunted by a very guilty conscience because of their past rulings. You know, Madam Martha Koome knows very well that they have made certain rulings that left terms wagging, and people are wondering, where is the authority, the independence, and the dignity that they're talking about? In the presidential ruling, the BBI ruling, Sakaja ruling, and now this ruling. Those rulings were very unique because they were major rulings, but they all went in favor of William Samoei Ruto. So when you talk about dignity, where is dignity? They understand too well that Kenyans don't trust them. And I remember recently, Madam Martha Koome was saying that there is an urgent need to restore confidence of the public as far as Supreme Court and the judicial rulings are concerned, because there is a very big gap. Kenyans no longer trust the judiciary because the judiciary is corrupt, ruling in the courts are corrupt, ruling in favor of the highest bidder. Now they understand too well their mistake, and this is why they are trying to gag people not to talk. Omutata, to the best of my knowledge, was expressing his displeasure even before the courts ruled. In fact, not only Omutata, most Kenyans are not surprised by the ruling. They say they expected, because they know that there is a lot of state capture. Every independent institution has been captured and pocketed by the executive, and so they were not worried. The Supreme Court must not be haunted by their past rulings. They only need to change, because if they don't change, Kenyans will still speak against some of these punitive rulings. They want to muzzle and curtail the freedom of speech, because by telling Omutata that his sentiments were tantamount to debasing the court, yet he was only expressing his views and sentiments as far as the case is concerned. And so when we see people trying to be very, very serious about critics, and they don't take critics, and they start muzzling people, they are curtailing the freedom of speech. These are the signs and symptoms of a dictator. So it seems like their master, who heads the executive arm of the government, they have also decided to be dictatorial. They want to turn out to be a dictator. The freedom of speech must not be interfered with, no matter what. When, together with the executive, they gang up and they want to intimidate people not to talk, this will not happen, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a choreographed effort to ensure that very many people are intimidated, so that people will not go to courts, people will not talk about judicial processes. We are allowed, when we have displeasure against these court rulings, then what are we supposed to do? People must talk about them. We must not allow anyone to mutilate our constitution. We must not allow anyone to try and gag people from talking, gag media from talking, because this is not only meant to Omutata. This is a warning to the media, to those who would want to talk about these rulings, and it starts by just a step. If they succeed in that, then the next they will be gagging the media, including the social media and all this. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Kenyans have rejected this kind of intimidation, because we do not know. Maybe the next thing you will hear is that Okia's life is in danger. Dignity and authority, as is entrenched into the Constitution, must be guarded. If the Supreme Court, if Madam Koome leads a team that are going against what is in the Constitution, then that dignity is lost